Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. I'm your host, Sunny Vanderstar. Today's topic is Peru's cultural hidden jewels, and it will be presented by our fabulous NatHab expedition leader, Francis Casapino. Francis, thank you so much for being here today. I am really looking forward to this presentation. As I told you already, I cannot wait to experience Peru. So let's go ahead and dive in.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you. I'm quite excited just to be with you, but frankly, I'm also a little nervous. I was just commenting to you, I don't tend to get nervous that often when I'm just taking people on tours, but being on the screen is something a little unusual for me. I'm still old-fashioned. Well, thank you, everybody, for your time. Let me talk to you about a beautiful part of Peru. This time, I'm not going to be focusing on some of the most interesting and beautiful attractions that my country has. Rather, I just named this presentation Peru Cultural Hidden Jewels because I want to present to you, as you can see through the screen, the colors and the vibrancy from its people. So let me introduce myself. As you already know me, my name is Francis Casapino. I really try to find much more, the different picture that would just show how young I am, but time is going by, so this is what I found. I've been just working for NatHab for over 23 years. I've been so lucky to have chosen by NatHab a long time ago. But of course, I should just share with you my background. Part of my background comprised my experience that I had in a beautiful part of the Amazon. It's called a national park named Manu Biosphere. It's a very pristine environment. And when I was spending time as a ranger, I was able just to meet and interact with indigenous people, and rather recently contacted Amazonian people. And that encounter really just transformed my life, made me realize there was a different type of life on the other side. Years later, I was also being able to work at a beautiful park. It's Nazca and Paracas, a national park in the deserts of Peru. As you can clearly see, the coast of Peru is rather barren and dry, but there, right near the waters, we have rich environments with fish and sea animals and birds, big guano, that indigenous people used. I've been working there together with a team in charge in restoring big drawings, carvings that are being made in the desert of that land by indigenous people, societies that go back to 400, 600 years AD. So there in the picture, you can just see one design on the left side that is a candelabro, a chandelier being left by those indigenous people at that time. Well, my passion for Peru, its cultural aspect, its people, the biology, animals, and environment, geology in general terms, it still got started thanks to a great man, my father, who took us up the mountains, always in search for answers and always discussing about every single aspect that just came to our minds. This time, I'm going to be, as I was telling you before, exposing you a beautiful part of my country that is, I consider, it's a touching, and it adds up a meaningful experience to our travelers, especially for those who happen to take two of our tours that bring them all the way to Peru. One of those is called Machu Picchu and the Amazon, and the other one just Machu Picchu itself. So here is where the story starts. This is the map of my country. And you might be wondering what I just wrote down where and what. It's because not so long ago, not many people knew really what Peru, the name of my country, was. Um, it may have been just through your school teacher or somewhere else who just you heard about, not Peru, but about a sacred and old Incan city built on a mountaintop called Machu Picchu. Of course, everybody had heard about it, but it was so remote and so mysterious. It was just one of those, fables that people were telling word by word about a great city in the mountains. Or your teachers must have also just described to you at one of the classes about a high elevation big lake on South America. Nobody really knew where Peru was, called Lake Titicaca. I know, if you just read that name, this is not inviting. This is one of those words, Lake Titicaca, that has two very forgive inaccepted names, Titi and Kaka, all together for one word. I'm just sure that at school you just had a crack and had a laughter with your friends when you heard just the name Titicaca. Well, Machu Picchu on Lake Titicaca with the floating islands is located in that place that no so long ago wasn't known by the rest of the people. It was so remote, so fantastic, and so exotic that I just don't even think Indiana Jones ever thought twice in coming to Peru. This is just a joke. Ultimately, Harrison Ford came to Peru in 2013. Well, a this is not only it. Let me just show you that my country and Peru was not really a forgotten and hidden place. Rather, this handsome man that you see on the screen wrote a beautiful song about Peru. But of course, when describing Peru, he also described Bombay and he's described Timbuktu. These destinations that you would not dare in and thinking ever come to visit. His song, if any of you wants to just follow up, it's called Come Fly With Me. When he just says, let's flow down to Peru. In Lamaland, there is a one-man's band and he'll toot his flute for you. Look it up. You might find it fascinating. Well, Peru, despite remote, was also known. It was trying to get the attention from other well-known people. One of those guys, if you are my generation, you might know who he is. Charlton Heston is a man who came to Peru in the 50s and just made a film called The Secret of the Incans at that time. He was the first Indiana Jones looking like, leather jacket, a broad-brimmed hat, and a man who was walking through the mountains trying to get to this fabled Incan city of Machu Picchu. Time went by, and in the 70s, another great well-known German actor, Klaus Kinski, he was personifying Aguirre, the Spaniard's mean, hardy, tough man who was trying to take a journey from the mountains down to the Amazon basin in search of golden cities. The movie, it's called The Wrath of God. You can look it up, both of them, on internet. Well, as you can just see, Peru was not really a hidden world, yet it was still remote. But as you can also see, one day, you and any of you can also be part of this group of famous people. Can be in the list of the famous people who have come to visit Peru. But well, the question is, what drove explorers and very few people to this part of South America? Let's start with showing you where Peru is located. This is a slide map of South America. My country is in green color. It's the third largest country in South America after Brazil, which is right where the word South America is located, and Argentina, big long part on the southern part. Peru is located on the western side of Peru. It has the Pacific Ocean on one side, a big chunk of the Pacific Ocean to tell the truth, And then there's many countries around it, usually countries that have Amazon basin. This other picture can just show you that my country is divided into three well-defined regions. The coast is that area which is painted in yellow, a very thin strip of coast, 11% of our territory, right where Lima, the capital, is located. Then we have the Andes, a mountain range, a very thick band that runs north and south or vice versa, and it really divides Peru into two more regions. And the green side, the green part, which comprises around 61% of our territory, it's the Amazon basin. So this is a country, very diverse country. It holds up 80% of the life zones, 80% of 104 life zones that World Wildlife Fund describes exist in the world. 80% of them can be found in only 60-mile distance. 60-mile distance when you're just coming from the Pacific Ocean just to the other extreme side, just near Cusco. You can just cover all these different environmental locations. So that makes Peru a fascinating place for birders, for people who are looking just for nature, landscape. Look at this view. This is the view of the Andes mountain range. It's not only a range, it's the youngest range and the longest range in the world. For the geologists, that range is considered to be, in fact, Peru, with the mountains, is considered to be an active laboratory, geological laboratory, because there is so much activity, shifting, uplifting, subduction, and so forth that goes. The Andes are still forming. And according to NASA, these beautiful mountains are rising from around 4 to 6 inches a year. So several thousand years from now, people will be talking about a major uplift of the Andes. Well, back at home in your country, you're very proud of your 14ers. That mountain right in front of you, the one that we see on our picnics when we're traveling around, is only 17,800 feet. And there is 19,000 foot more glaciers on its side. Well, besides these beautiful landscapes, just take a look at this other picture that I just brought up. This region is called the tropical Andes. The same Andes mountain range which is facing the Amazon basin and capturing up to 45% humidity and 78 inches of rainfall in this environment. This is another section, an area that we come to visit when we are traveling with natural habitat. Iquitos is the Amazon basin on the northern part of Peru. Let me remind you, 61% of our territory is Amazon rainforest. So, talking about diversity, this is a beautiful country. But the reason what brings me up today, and I try to reach you out through this webinar, it's not necessarily this beautiful topography. We are going just to talk about the hidden treasures of the Incas. We are going to talk about the hidden jewels, which for me is their people. Well, in Peru, we have not only the largest and healthiest indigenous population in South America, we also have these people who maintain their roots, their genes, their background, going back just to the earlier ancestors, hunter-gatherers, who settled in South America around 15,400 years. There in the picture, you can just see several women, but I don't know if you can just identify a little baby being carried on the woman's back on the right lower part. The baby has a knitted hat. Well, he is hunter-gathering training. Well, interacting with these people, as I was telling you, brings out some of the most memorable and touching experiences in Peru. And I don't say that just from myself. I've seen that over these 23 years of work in the fields, that some of the most relevant experiences that our guests have is when they happen to interact with them. So Peru, holding up just a beautiful large population of indigenous people, bring out these beautiful experiences. You will see through this very light, short webinar that these people, men and women's lives, are not that different from ours. Well, this is a picture that shows a woman when she's just going out to the market to do her groceries. They're always wearing this beautiful, colorful attire, and they're always at a fast, frantic pace. They never go out without wearing a hat on. You may say, oh, of course, I mean, it's for the sun. This is South America. This is the tropics. The sun is coming vertically at you all the time. No way. The hat, it's worn indoors and outdoors. Let me show you another picture. The hat, sometimes it's even much smaller than their head, 1 or 2 sizes smaller than their head. No one quite knows why they wear it on. And of course, if you look at the picture, you can clearly notice that this hat is not to protect yourself from the sun. The meaning of the hat is rather unknown. We only just know that when you look at them, they look at least a foot taller with a hat on. And sometimes just one thing that is really certain is that the women just identify themselves, the community come from, depending on the type of hat they wear on. So for instance, the former hat and this one are hats that are the influence from the early Spanish explorers, sailors, the first conquistadors, and people who arrived to these remote lands. They must have been wearing hats. These local women adopted these hats till these days. We call them, just more mestizo or Spanish hats. Meanwhile, there are other types of hats. Look at this beautiful lady. These hats are flat, whether they are flat, they are round, they are oblong, they are square, with fringes or without fringes, but they are generally flat. This is what we would describe as the most indigenous Inca hat. They wear the hat almost all the time. It's only when they go to church, when they take the hat off, and you can just see, and they reveal the beautiful black color of their hair. Well, as I was telling you, as I described to you before, this is not really, they are not that different from us. They are human beings, but just living on this other part of the continent, where they are going to the markets. Look at this beautiful market. There's no space for a cart in a market like this. This is an outdoor market. They could not be able just to go to a normal indoor market, otherwise they would get depressed. This is a different world where colors abound. They have to carry the products they buy in those handbags. Take a look at this beautiful woman. She has a handbag on her right hand. And guess what? She's not carrying only one. She might be having a second or a third one inside that she'll take it out when needed for potatoes and corn and vegetables and fruits. So these ladies seem to be just like octopus or camels who are carrying their goods on their backs, as you can clearly see through the picture, keeping their hands free so they can carry more stuff on each hand. Not a single man would be allowed to take over this beautiful task. This is women's world. This is their world. What a fascinating reality. Well, what happens if the family is blessed with a baby? Well, this is not a rare event. It seems that here in Peru, everyone seems to be in a rather frantic competition trying to just make babies. If there's a baby like him, like her, she's not going to be just left in front of a TV. She is carried along on a day of immersion. So she just goes on and hops on mama's back and hears and listens to, tries to reach out, tries to put things on. She's just hands on. Not need for riddling in this world. These people, these kids are also ADDs, but they are usually hands on all the time. It's a beautiful, fascinating world. Um, One of my guests one time when we were traveling said to me, Francis, these people don't seem to have enough stamina. I don't see anybody jogging, anybody just lifting weights. Well, there's no time in the Andes to hit the gym. In fact, to tell you the truth, there are no gyms. There's not gyms when these people are burning almost 99% of their kilocalories every day. Well, doing manicure and pedicure would be quite expensive for them, for they would need to do it every day. As you can see, that's one of the least concerns in their lives. So, sorry for this. When they are just driving to the markets, they're not taking any other thing but an exciting ride. This is one of the most common vehicles in various countries. One of those is Peru, that takes them there and back with their wares on. It's a car in which you can just hold up 3 Peruvian people and babies and potatoes in them. This is it's a car that doesn't include life insurance. This type of rides and this type of life adds up a lot of excitement to their lives. So that keeps them busy and happy. So imagine the ride. Another guest one time said to me, Francis, what did you do in their spare time? I said, what? Spare time? Well, I said to them as a joke, of course they walk the dogs. Well, no. As you can see in this picture on the left lower part, the dog walks alone. The dog tags along. These women walk llamas and alpacas. These women chase sheep. You really don't want to be caught up in the middle of their task. These women drive donkeys across. So their lives are busy. They don't have just downtime, spare time. And this is not all they do. Let me just show you a little bit more. I hope you still are with me. One of the most beautiful activities they carried out in Peru, it's weaving. Weaving is the oldest weaving in Peru, the oldest weaving textile technology in the world. This woman is holding up a drop spindle. You're so more used to having a wheel used for a long time to spin wool into yarn. These women, on the other hand, are constantly very productive. They don't want to waste much time. This has forced them to create a technology, a drop spindle, a little shaft that allows them just to spin the yarn as they're walking, as they're carrying their babies, as they're herding their animals all the time. Weaving beautiful, colorful patterns, it's part of their lives. They do it all the time. It's their hobby. Once they are able just to spin balls of yarn together, to be able just to make a manta, a blanket as she's just wearing on her back, the time that will just take easily several weeks just to have enough balls of yarn, then she can be ready to put it all together on a loom, on a warp. This loom is a very old traditional backstrap loom technique that we happen to see in this part of the world, in Peru. It's a normal, beautiful habit, of course, jeopardized due to this 21st century world with internet, TV, cell phones, and so. But somehow it's still being held by some of our indigenous people till these days. She would just need at least a month and a half, depending on the size and depending on the intricate of her designs, to handpick and make complex designs and finally have a beautiful shawl or a manta ready. Month and a half. Well, this is where they gather. There's a picture of these local ladies from a native community who gather at weaving courts. They have a ball when they gather here. This is a beautiful social moment. This is a time when they stay together gossiping, they chat among each other, they tweet, they FaceTime each other. I'm just kidding. They just really enjoy these beautiful moments in order to bond, in order to integrate themselves and strengthen their ties as people. And the best part of it, that keeps them away from their husbands. So, not that men don't do it, they do it, but separate from women. This is a beautiful art in which, as you can clearly see, they focus their attention on. They worry less about their raising their kids or their education or what their husbands are doing here or there. They're focused just on one thing and one thing alone at a time. This is a beautiful women's world. So weaving, it's really a serious task. And if there is any free time in their lives, they spend that time at the local bars. Those local bars in the Andes are called chicherias. Chicha is the main name given to the corn beer, one of the oldest alcoholic drinks that humans have ever developed, have ever created, produced in the world. Chicha is made entirely out of corn, and corn was domesticated in this part of the world around pretty much 7,000 years BC. So you can imagine that these people had access just to beer for 9,000 years plus. This picture shows, it's a picture that I just took when I was taking my guest into one of those bars. The ladies were just looking at them, surprised, looking at the visitors from head to toes and up, all the time. This is a local bar. Right on the far left upper part, you can just see all these plastic containers. Back at home, you call them as growlers, that the woman on the far deep side in a white hat prepares and just pours in. So all these three ladies can take it to drink more in the farming fields. These local bars just gather women of any age, as you can clearly see, young and old, single or married, with babies or without babies. They all hang out at another beautiful place where they socialize, which is the bar. So as you can see, Peruvians just drink it at a professional level. This is, in fact, their source of water. You don't usually see Peruvians drinking just plain water. They would not drink plain water. As the name says, it's just plain, has no flavor. Why would you just drink water? Instead, they hydrate themselves with beer. As you can see, these ladies are just really drinking big glasses of beer. Each of these glasses is 1 liter glass, bigger than a pint. Well, this is also the cure for any of their sorrows. So after just drinking, and if there's any little time left, there's always some time for dancing. But before dancing, what do I mean with it? Dancing on potatoes. This beautiful picture reveals a barefooted woman, and not only one, but there's another one in the background, who are literally stepping on potatoes. As odd as it might sound, here in Peru, our indigenous women dance, tap dance, and step on potatoes. This tap dancing, of course, is not for fun. This is a very old process that consists in freezing and dehydrating potatoes. The potatoes that's you, and a regular potato, is put in sacks in cold freezing water. It could be in the lakes or in the streams for 30 up to 40 days. That rushing and running cold water will wash the digestive inhibitor enzymes of the potatoes and the starch from the potatoes. Then the potatoes are taken out, spread on the fields, and that's when the dancing starts. She makes sure that she's squeezing all the liquid out of that potato in a matter of 15 days or 30 days for some species. She's going to have potatoes that have no water in them. The resulting potatoes will look just like this. The one on the left side, the darker brownish color potato, is harder. It's being dried in the sun, therefore also burned and cooked in the sun. In contrast with the lighter color potato that looks like a mushroom, which has taken much longer, almost 30 years, to dehydrate. This special and very traditional millennial technology, we don't know exactly how old it goes back in time. It's today known in biologists as lyophilization. You know that in our Western world, we love making up big words so we can sound smarter. Lyophilize was not created today, but it's a way how you can preserve potatoes or preserve vegetables or fruits today by pretty much almost, getting rid of the water by still maintaining all the good contents in them. This type of potato you see there will last for up to 27 years without refrigeration. Well, with products like this and with a technology like this, indigenous people were able to have a surplus of production that allowed them undertake projects like the construction of their Incan sites and monuments like Machu Picchu. Well, I hope you later on you have any other questions about those. But let me just ask you one question. I mean, who are these people? I just handpicked several of these pictures. These people, who are these people who are just dressed in rainbow color, bright color clothing? Are they New Yorkers? No, definitely not. They would definitely stand out if they are just walking through Wall Street. These people are the descendants of the Incans, or the descendants of many of the ethnic groups and civilizations that once populated the Americas. And they are still here. We have the advantage, and we are so blessed to have them around us. Thanks, on the one hand, due to the remoteness of their houses, their location, their communities. If you look at the background and the landscapes, the landscape and the mountains have just protected them from a quick change. But of course, I mean, the world is flat today, and it's complicated just to keep them, in a bubble. These people have been in this world for at least 15, 17,000 years ago. That has turned them into some of the best potato farmers. Here in Peru, we grow up to 3,000 species of potatoes, 1,000 species of maize, corn, and 100 different kinds of quinoa. Look at this picture, is excellent. So you can finally, for those who are eating this super grain, super food, to see how quinoa grows and to realize that quinoa really doesn't only come in just white or red or brown colors. 100 different species of potatoes grown in Peru. Peru, my country, is the largest exporter of quinoa to the world. It holds up more than 50% of what it's produced worldwide in regard just to quinoa. Well, and what happened when they do have some free time? There's just two moments in their lives when everything paralyzes, everything stops. And one of those is a Catholic event. You can just see a picture of Cusco, right the main square. We happened to stay in one of our journeys right in the city and have the chance to wander around. And if we happen to meet and see a beautiful event like this, oh, definitely would just go there and commute with the locals. Catholic events are quite predominant, prevalent, and strong. This is a Catholic society. Take a look at this beautiful picture. Only just last October, my mother dressed up like any of these ladies you see in the picture, in purple robes from October the 1st to October 31st until midnight. No one second earlier. This is the tradition. They hold up the largest procession in Hispanic Catholic meeting. This is a picture of what goes on in the capital of Lima, with thousands of people, local people, following the major procession in honor of a figure of Jesus painted on a wall. Well, Peru, really talking about religion, it's a Catholic country. Around 80% of the Peruvians are Catholics. But these Peruvians still hold up their ancient background and traditions. This is what goes on in the big cities or the medium-sized cities, whereas what happens in contrast in the countryside, in the mountains, in the land of the Incan descents, mountains and earth rather are worshipped. I mean, mountains and earth are worshipped. 500 years later, after the presence of the first Iberian conquerors, we can see still, as you can see in the pictures, people leading journeys with bands, music, and beautiful, colorful dresses up to worship and render homage and honor to the deities. It's a beautiful blend between Catholicism and native faith. You have to have not only stamina, you have to have big lung capacity to be able just to walk throughout all these mountains at above 16, 17,000 feet to honor, those deities. So these people who are also performing traditional ceremonies, traditional rituals, as you can see, are also embracing Catholicism. This is a world in which both two different types of faith and philosophies, Catholicism and native religion, just come together. No one subdues the other. No one takes advantage of each other. It's a beautiful blend. It's called a sort of symbiotic relationship between each other, a dependence between Catholicism and native faith. Well, as you could just notice in this last 38 minutes, I was just sharing with you some of the aspects, the vibrancy, the activities that women perform in our lives in Peru. But how about the men? One time, one of the guests said to me, Francis, what do the men do? Well, not surprising. That's the same question my wife holds up when I'm at home. What are you doing all this time? Well, men also do the little bit, the share of the activities, but it doesn't need that long just to explain what men can do. So let's just go down just to what men do in Peru. Besides attending parties and fiestas and festivities and processions and serenades and the neighbors' birthday parties. And so they also do and played an important role in our dual world. They do the house construction. Here's a picture of many men roofing a thatch roof house, a thatch roof. As you can just see, there's many men in a row working hard, and there's many others, as many as those working, who are part of the quality control crew. Don't seem to do much. That's an activity that men do. Men also are, along with their wives, involved and in charge in planting potatoes to be connected with the earth and the earth that gives them life and food. Men harvest the potatoes along with their wives. Remember, the mountains are the givers of protection, of rain, the protectors of their stock, animals, llamas and alpacas and sheep and goats. But the earth is the giver of food and life. Men are also involved into weaving, particularly if we are visiting indigenous native communities. The beautiful patterns that you see on their ponchos just describes how skillful each individual person is. They transmit beautiful information. Anthropologists call that iconographic system of communication that is used to transmit mythical history, oral tradition, farming practices, agricultural events, and astronomy related to it, all through these designs. Well, and as for me, when my wife asked me, what are you doing, or what have you been doing all this time? I always tell them that I'm proudly supporting my country with my entire body and soul at a soccer match. Thank you so much. I hope you like it.
Thank you so much, Francis. We've got lots of questions for you, but I just want to remind everybody that they can submit their questions via the questions field in the control panel. You just answered the question I got most, which was, what do the men do? But do the men also wear hats, or is it just the women?
This is beautiful. Yes, I mean, this beautiful, colorful society varies from community to community. You can just see men wearing also hats, knitted hats, smaller hats, but it's usually the women who really maintain the tradition through their outfit, through the dresses and clothing. Yes.
And can you tell us the alcohol content of the corn beer? Does it vary, or is it pretty standard?
That's beautiful. Despite the fact that in our journeys, I try to expose them just to see this beautiful reality, we definitely are not allowed to drink in it, because that beer, that corn beer, it's a 1 day or 2 day beer. So it literally means that, I mean, it doesn't have too much alcohol in it. It's around 2.5%, but it gets built up when you're drinking it, because you're drinking in a liter glass. And when it goes into our system that is not so used to it, our stomach and our innards become the fermenting tank. And you know what happens in a fermenting tank? CO2 gets built up, so you get bloated. So if you're not used to it, you just get bloated. These people are used to it.
Can you talk a little bit more about what other foods are grown besides quinoa, corn, and potatoes?
Well, it's just incredible how the Americas in general term has become just a breadbasket for peppers, squashes, the so-called zucchini, it's native to the Americans, hot peppers, beans, different kinds of beans, and very exotic, different exotic types of fruits are part of this beautiful world. among, let's say, other roots. Potato is a tuber, but there are sweet potatoes. There is oca potatoes, oxalis family potatoes. There is maca roots, and countless of different other products that are grown at different levels. We have valleys in which you produce vegetables and fruits, and we have higher elevation areas that are entirely utilized just to grow wheat, barley, oats, and legumes and potatoes. With a world, our world, Peru, that provides, elevations from sea level up to pretty much 13,800 feet, which is one of the world's high elevation records for growing potatoes or higher. We have a big expanse, large territories and varied microclimatic conditions to grow many things in it.
Hmm. Regarding roofing, are thatched roofs nowadays used on just special buildings, or is that a typical roof for any house?
Thatch roof is a very inexpensive way just to roof in a house, usually for houses high up in the mountains, because this thatch, this grass grows wild in nature from 11,500 feet higher. So most of the Andes from that elevation on, it's just the Andes mountains are covered in that stipe grass. So it's very, very inexpensive. But there is still a traditional ritual which consists in roofing the community houses, the communal house in a small community, and it's carried out entirely by men. So that's what I try to capture this time. But usually just the work that men do, it's not only roofing, they also build their houses. They make the adobe bricks. Women do not participate into it, not that they are not able to, simply that this world, in this part of the world, native world, their activities are divided. Some of them are just carried out by women and others are carried out by men, and you don't mess up with each other. That's usually the reality. Yes.
Okay. Can you describe a typical breakfast or dinner?
Wow.
What's a typical meal?
Wow, that's also a big question. Hard to answer right away because, as you must have heard, that Peru is becoming just a world's culinary destination. And the reason of that is because, we have so many different traditions. People from the northern Amazon has moved down to the cities, so from the cities have moved out to the countryside. Everyone, it's bringing their mamas or grandmas recipes and traditions and spices along. So that just brings up to so many different types of dishes. But it's just quite hard. What I can tell you is, for most part, us Peruvians like eating carbohydrates. We start the day with a bowl of soup or a stew, a big pile of rice, potatoes, and a stew just for breakfast. But of course, that really varies so dramatically from what we can just get in the cities as well.
Hmm. Um, do indigenous men grow beards? And if not, why?
Oh, that's a neat question. Well, genetically speaking, they do not, or they do, but it's just prickly, very few scatter beards here and there that really don't grow into a beard or a mustache. But over the course of 500 years after interbreeding, we can clearly see for ourselves when we are before indigenous people, but by noticing the lack of beard, or more interbred when they have beards, mustaches. Another feature that is interesting is that I was just talking about their color of their hair. Their hair is usually black, intense black, and stays like that for a long time. And it only changes into gray when they have more European genes in them. So the black hair, the gray hair and the baldness and the beards are usually associated to genes that are coming from the old world.
Interesting. Huh. Today's voting day here. So this question says, how do the people in the mountains vote during elections?
That's pretty. Everyone in Peru votes. Voting is mandatory. So every indigenous person has an ID, and she or he, at the age of 18, has the right to vote. And it's obliged, literally, it's mandatory. It's obliged to get to the closest town where she or he got his ID from and has to physically vote. If she doesn't vote, she pays a fine. The only
Mm,
ones exempt from voting are uncontacted ethnic groups in the Amazon who really are not even, part of the statistics.
mhm. Fascinating. Well,
Mhm.
Francis, I that's the last question we have for you today, but the the Q&A is filled with comments from people who have traveled with you and have just thoroughly
Oh,
enjoyed their experience, and lots of folks sending you love and gratitude and thanking you for the wonderful experience they had, which they have not forgotten. So I will share those comments with you later. But we'll end there and I'll turn it back to you for closing comments.
oh, thank you so much. Oh, I wish I could just see them too. No, I'd be always just grateful for their smiles, their patience, they, as as we just came and explored together Peru. And for those of you who haven't come to Peru yet, as I was telling you, there is still enough space in the list of the famous who have come to this part of the world. So I just made this and put together this beautiful picture so you could just see the beauty of this country, the beauty of its people. And I hope it can inspire you to one day come and tag along, bring your bundle and your shopping bags, and we'll fit in here very well. Thank you so much. Have a very good afternoon.
Well, you definitely inspired me. I'm going to come tag along as soon as I can figure out how. So thank you again. And I
Thank
want
you.
to thank everybody who tuned in. Please join us again tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, we'll conclude the webinar. Have a wonderful day, everyone.